The meeting for Wednesday, July 19th, 2017 will be called to order. Roll call, please.
Calling the roll, Mr. Tuma,
Here.
Mr. Miller. Here. Ms. Conwell. Ms. Conwell is absent. Mr. Schrein. Mr. Schrein is absent at the moment. Ms. Baker. Here. There is a quorum.
Okay. And is there any public comment related to the agenda this morning?
No, Mr. Chair, no one has signed in.
Okay. And if we could, if you've reviewed the minutes from the June 21st, 2017 meeting, could I have a motion to accept the minutes?
I so move.
Could I have a second? Okay, I have a motion, a second to approve the June 21st, 2017 minutes. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. And clerk, if you could, Madam Clerk, please read the resolution.
Resolution number 2017-0130, making an award on requisition number 39750 to Terrick Roofing in the amount not to exceed $2,448,661 for the Cuyahoga County Historical Courthouse Roof Replacement and Stone Repair Project.
Okay, and do we have someone here to speak to this? I see Mr. Schron has arrived for the record. If you could just please state your name for the record.
Yes, sir. Good morning to all. My name is Christine Petro. I am a registered architect and the new chief section architect for the Department of Public Works under the Facilities Design and Construction Unit. And with me I have Susan Bass.
Good morning. I'm a senior project manager under Christine Petro in the Department of Public Works Facilities Design and Construction.
Okay. And if you could just kind of give us a brief description of what this legislation is requesting here. And
Absolutely. Thank you for the opportunity.
well, thank you.
Today we are seeking approval for capital improvement contract award for the courthouse roof replacement project. And if I may, I'd just like to give you a brief history of the project. In 2015, a property condition assessment report was prepared by Richard L. Bowen and Associates. And in that report, they touched on numerous items that are inherent to that particular building. One was the building envelope. They reported that it's in generally good condition, except for the existing roof, which required replacement. And in 2015, it was recommended that this replacement project be done within the next 5 years. The building envelope is the roof is an existing flat built up bituminous roof that is more than 30 years old. The new roof with a minimum R30 insulation value would help in reducing the building heating and cooling costs. In regard to the roof ladders that are currently on the facility, this assessment report recommended that they be replaced since they are lacking safety cages and step-over platforms at the parapets, which they also require additional securement for safety reasons. In regard to the parapets of the building, the existing stone parapets are showing signs of water damage and spalling, and the recommendation is to retrofit those parapets with pre-finished metal coping in such a way that it's not visible from the street because it is a historic landmark building. In regard to the flashing, during the roof replacement, replacing flashings are recommended and will be integral to the construction project. They're recommended to be installed so that they extend up the back side of the parapets in order to reduce instances of water infiltration. Ledges, there are numerous ledges existing on the interior courtyards of the building, and they are exhibiting signs of deterioration due to the weathering and the consequences of years of exposure to bird droppings. At one time, a protective coating was applied to the ledges. However, it has since weathered or worn away, and the recommendation is to install a sloped, pre-finished metal cap flashing over these ledges to provide protection to the existing stone and a possible deterrence to birds. In regard to the roof drains, the existing roof drains are internal to the building. so you don't see them from the outside like you would regular downspouts. And they're concealed in chases within the main corridors. The existing roof drains are original to the building, which is circa 1906, so they're 100 years old or so. And the anticipated service life has expired, and emergency repairs have been made throughout the years. The recommendation, in order to sort of keep this within scope, is to install a pipe lining that is a cured in place resin in lieu of replacement. So we're looking at relining the internal roof drains. And Susan Bass has been working with the design consultant, and she will bring you up to speed with the scope of the work with regard to the design and the construction and bidding.
Okay, we've been working with K2M, they're the architect of record on the project. So from the assessment that was put together by Richard L. Bowen, we passed that along to K2M. They further developed the scope of work, and through a traditional design bid build process, we put this bid out for public bid. Tarek Roofing was the apparent best and lowest bidder, and we are seeking approval to move forward with the resolution of their contract. They came in significantly lower than the architect's estimate. And in that course of technical review, Public Works, along with assistance from K2M, did actually conduct a conference call with Tarek Roofing just to ensure that every item as part of this work scope was included in their bid, in which they did ensure that it is. We also, in our technical review, determined that Tarek has also done a lot of work with other government agencies, including Mahoning County and Kent State. So we feel confident with Tarek Roofing, and we are seeking your approval for their contract. Thank you.
Okay. All right, thank you. Just a few questions for you ladies. The first, so there was an assessment that was made by Bowen. So what prompted the assessment? Was there leaking at the courthouse, or problems with shingles falling over? What started that whole process, I guess?
That's a really good question, and it actually predates my tenure with the city, or
Okay.
with the county, I'm sorry. So I will turn that over to Susan.
Okay.
I think a lot of the issues associated with the building arose from just the roof itself, because there are leaks that have been occurring within the building. There was also some asbestos in the attic that has been since taken care of in another project we completed last year. So I think there's just a number of components in the building, as well as the age of the building, that required this assessment to be completed.
Okay. And then they said this was done in 2015, and there was like a 5-year period within which they recommended the roof being replaced. So why now, as opposed to maybe a year, 2 years from now? I'm just why now?
That's another good question that kind of predates me, but I know that there's a lot of activity happening at the courthouse area, specifically with the Huntington Park Garage building. And of course, we're 1 year out from having the Republican National Convention. So with all of that activity, I think it's just prudent to kind of phase the construction work so that you don't have contractors tripping over one another.
Okay, and then a next question, and I think you might have answered this, I think Susan might have answered this. So the historical value has been taken into consideration with respect to any of the work that they're doing, so that they don't detract from that, historic aura that's associated with the courthouse, correct?
That's correct, and K2M actually, prior to submitting for permit with the city, sat down with Landmarks Commission and walked them through the scope of work on what
Right.
they were planning on doing, and at that point, Landmarks really didn't flag anything
Okay.
notable from
Okay.
that discussion.
And then just my final question is so what, you might have said this too, what type of roof is it actually, the grade, or what is it made of, the roof itself?
So it's a built-up roofing. It's actually a asphalt roofing that'll be applied, and we're seeking a 40-year warranty. Typically, 30 years is the minimum, but we went a bit above and beyond for just modifications in how the specs were written, not necessarily from a dollar value, to seek a 40-year warranty on the roof.
Okay, all right, and I'll open the floor to my colleagues. Mr. Schron?
Yeah, I think that just for your reference, I believe that the county buildings were probably caught up in the study that the previous county executive had asked for to review all county buildings and all conditions, and with the intent of selling some of the buildings. Obviously, building was never going to be sold, but I think it all got caught up in that same package as far as analysis, and just only because the way your comment, I just think you just need to be aware that the RNC was last year, not a year in the future. It sounded to me as though.
No, we're a year out, a year beyond.
Oh, okay. Okay, gotcha. I was a little confused as far as what its impact as to why you would be doing this today. I thought the answer was the timing is still ahead of what the useful life is. I think you got from Bain. The useful life of the Bain was still a couple of years down the road, is it not?
They recommended 5 years, so we're within that 5-year period. I mean, to replace the roof.
Right.
Is that what you're asking? I'm
Yes.
sorry.
When would the 5 years have expired?
2020.
Okay, so we are 3 years ahead of that. If we start on it now, or at least 2.5 years, I assume this is probably a 3 to 4 month project.
It's actually a little longer than that.
It's about 10 to 11 months, and we're going to
Okay.
be completing as much of there's three areas of the roof. There's a west side, there's an east side, and there's a center section. And our goal is to do 2 of the 3 phases before the winter shutdown, which we've accommodated for in this contract. Is there a 100-day, dependent on weather, shutdown period? The other comment is, I guess, when Bowen did the assessment, we were already beyond the 30-year life expectancy of the roof. So I think their recommendation was to really just try to, within 5 years, they kind of provided an order of magnitude of the assessment. And this was one of the items that was identified as far as order of magnitude, years 0 to 5 from date of assessment. I think it's already beyond 30. I think we're at almost 40 or later at this point with the actual roof itself.
So just to clarify, so the roof is actually older than 30?
The roof is
Okay.
older than 30.
Okay.
It's just from their assessment, they
Yeah.
said, hey, within 5 years, if you can do this, that'd be a good thing.
Okay, and is this a complete tear off?
That's correct.
Okay, so we're going all the way down to the superstructure of the roofing system.
That's correct.
And it doesn't sound as though we're using new technology, though, as far as the roof itself. We're
Not
not using,
necessarily,
you're
no.
not using membrane materials or any of the things that you would see in today's modern roofs. Why is that?
Well, for one thing, it's a tried and true system. It is something that the trades are familiar with. We currently have a contract with Garland Roofing, who services our roofings. I'm not sure if you can actually get a reliable 40-year warranty out of a membrane roofing.
Yeah, you can. It depends on what,
It
what are the
depends
brands, yeah. But the high-end
Exactly.
rubberized roof, are more of where technology has moved in the last 15, 20 years. I know we put a rubber roof on our building 20 years ago, and it's pretty impervious, but I was just curious to why we went that route. How about a contingency as far as the likelihood with a membrane with materials of cinder and tar up there? Quite often there's going to be little leaks that'll penetrate through. Are you concerned about finding any water that might be sitting on the plate surface after you get the complete tear off out there, any damage? What do you have in the way of contingency for unforeseen?
We have a $200,000 allowance built into the contract, so as part of their form of proposal, those numbers were already defined for them. We have a cash allowance of $200,000. We also have a $50,000 allowance for existing roof deck repairs, so that would kind of fall under that category of when we do the tear off, what we find once we do that. We do have money budgeted to allow for that.
So between the 50 and the 200, you do have a 10% contingency.
Yes,
And in the event we don't find that, this number would be reduced by 250,000 then?
that money would be returned to us
Yeah.
at the end of the project, correct?
Yeah, okay, all
There
right,
would
thank you.
actually be an adjustment made to the contract.
At the end.
Sure, if they don't use the contingency,
Yes.
Absolutely.
that we recover that, it doesn't go off the top. What color are we doing?
It would be a black roof.
Are we? Okay, even though, again, a lot of technology is showing to go to white roof because of the
Well-
solar absorption and some of the heat.
Actually, I have read, and I can provide you if you'd like with some reports, that in our geographic location right here, we don't really benefit too much from the white roof. Actually, black roofs work better in our climate. And I have numerous reports from roofing consultants and such. The biggest issue with a white roof is that if you have roof-mounted condensing units, the white roof actually reflects the heat back under the condensing unit, and it shortens the life of the condensing unit.
Okay, very good, thank you.
Mr. Miller?
Mr. Chairman, my first question is whether the scope of this project includes all of the problems that you described to us at the beginning of your presentation.
Yes, it does. Actually, it's with the complete tear-off. There will be an inspection made of the existing deck, and if there are repairs needing to be made, that would be part of the scope and paid through the allowance for that. There's also an allowance for some masonry repairs that we may encounter as far as unforeseen conditions are concerned. The flashing will be included. The new safety ladders will be included. The drains are being relined as a part of this work. And the flashing on the parapets as well as the ledges, those are all part of the scope of the work that was bid.
And is there anything else that this building needs, or will this project pretty much bring us up to date?
This is only for the roof, sir. The building does need additional work, and it was all addressed in the building assessment. The other work that needs to be done is not really in that order of magnitude of 5 years. I mean, some of them are out to 10 years from the date of this report. There is exterior tuck pointing that needs to be done. There is a replacement of the exterior windows. The exterior windows on the outside of the building envelope are a metal window with a pre-finish, but the windows in total are actually exhibiting some signs of water infiltration and air infiltration. The inner windows, which are around the courtyards, are the actual original wood, single glazed windows that date back to when the courthouse was built. Now, some of those are in pretty rough shape. So a comprehensive window replacement project is looming on the horizon. There are exterior door repairs that are required. The existing bronze doors are all historic to the building, and those are going to need to have some inspection and repairs made to them, as well as the interior vestibule doors as well. And there's some need to repair the existing stairs, the moat walls, and also paving around the building.
Are any of these additional items in the 0 to 5 year time frame, or are they farther out than that?
Some of these are noted as being like within 10 years. Generally, the building, being that, you know, it's over 100 years old, is in excellent shape. It's in very, very good shape. And we submitted to the city, they have a new facade ordinance that has to be, the facades need to be inspected, and a report submitted by a facade expert specialist. So when we had the report done for the courthouse, we are okay. The county stands in good condition for that building. But, you know, just know that it's a historic building, and it needs some tender loving care.
When this bid was put out, were there any goals for minority or female business participation included in the bid specifications? And if so, did the winning bidder achieve them?
We did include diversity goals.
Good morning, Lenora Lockett, Office of Procurement and Diversity. There was a 7% SBE goal, a 17% MBE goal, and a 6% WBE goal. The vendor has complied with each of those goals.
Okay, great, thanks.
Mr. Miller, Ms. Baker?
Thank you. Certainly understand the importance of making sure that we try and maintain our historical buildings. But a 2.4 million is kind of a shocker sticker tag when we talk about one aspect of this building being repaired. Certainly the stone repair is extensive, so it's not just a replacement. It sounds like there are other variables here when you start talking about the parapet. But I guess what I will ask you a couple of questions. Given that this is a historical building, I guess we label it as that, it's 100 years old, any tax credits that come our way for the historical aspect of it?
I doubt that. As far as the roof is concerned, we are increasing the R value, but I'm not sure if we are available, we have the opportunity to tap into any tax credits. That might be something that we could challenge our design team on to see if there might be something that we could look at. Some of the tax credits with regard to windows, upcoming projects, we could certainly entertain that and reach out and do some research on that, of course.
All right, if I may. With my limited history of tax credits, usually, especially for these historical buildings, you need to toe the line as to how things are done on these buildings so that they are to the historical likeness of what you're trying to preserve. So that's why I asked if there were any tax credits and if you've been working with tax credits in order to keep proceeding. The white roof that you mentioned earlier, any solar panels as part of this project? We just passed a pretty extensive county building solar panel program, and I wonder if you're part of that.
We did not consider solar panels on this project. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the service is through Cleveland Thermal.
For the solar panels.
No, for the heating and cooling
Yes.
in the courthouse. So, given the limited area, we really do have limited area within the confines of the roof. What you would probably recover with that solar would just be minimal in offsetting some of the electrical load. Certainly that could be looked into, but I think your biggest payback is actually with wind energy. And that's something that we have been, Department of Public Works has been talking with the Office of Sustainability. And we're finding out that you actually are getting a quicker payback with the wind energy. The only problem is that you have these huge windmills. So that would be an issue in locating one in and around the Justice Center and the courthouse. We're looking at, there's talks of putting one in over by the bridge, but I'm not sure how far along we are in those talks.
Well, if I may continue, given that we are specifically today talking about roof replacement, then that would lead to the question of the solar panels
Of
as
course.
part of the roof replacement. And if you're part of the overall plan of using, especially since you're replacing, it seems like a logical, at least a question is, am I included in the new solar panel initiative? And that's the question that's before you.
The answer is no, and there's a lot of highs and lows on the roof, just the way the roof configuration is, and we've got the courtyards. I don't think we could actually maximize the area in order to make the solar panels actually to make an impact.
Really? Okay. If I may, the square footage of the roof, what is that? How big of a roof are we? Just,
Give me one.
you say it's rather small, and just wondered what, 2.4 million just seems like a huge price tag.
The architect's estimate was at 4 million.
Really?
So this coming in at 2.4 was surprising to us.
Wow.
So we were pleasantly surprised to know that it came in
Yeah.
significantly lower than what had been anticipated.
Okay.
Let me see if I can find the square footage.
Well, Susan's
50,000 square feet,
15?
50.
50.
50?
Yeah.
Really? Okay, well, that's pretty significant.
Big.
Yeah, that's pretty big. One last question. Is there a historical difference in what you're replacing? Are you trying to meet the date of the building and trying to make it look like what it would have looked like back 100 years ago? Are you trying to, bring the historical factor into your plans of replacing this roof? Or are you using the most economical, and not really caring about whether or not it fits the time of the building?
From the roof perspective itself, I feel that we're using the most economical solution. From the masonry standpoint, with repairs of the parapet walls that you see around the building from ground level, we are restoring those to the historical appearance that they currently display. We're going to keep that in mind as we do the repair, especially with matching the sandstone and making sure that they look as if they were original. I think with roofs, there's a little bit more grace because it's not something that the public sees. And that's really something that Cleveland Landmarks dictates on how far do you need to go to get to that historic nature. Is if I'm standing on Lakeside Avenue, can I see this? If I'm looking up, I'm just a Joe Public looking up, and can I see that this is there? And that I think is really like one of their guidelines on how they determine how far you go with historic nature of repairs.
Just a follow to that. I guess there's two things I would ask that you at least look into. One is if there are any historical tax credits by the state of Ohio that may be interested in. And the second, it would be good to know the total investment of this courthouse. How much money have we invested and how much more is needed? We have a budget that we're going to be looking at here shortly, and it would be good to know, especially given a 2.4 million replacement of just one part of this, although significant. 50,000 square feet is a pretty significant coverage, but it would be good to know both of those things before so we understand the project.
We will provide those.
Thanks.
Okay. Any follow-up questions? I have one. Mr. Miller?
Do we have an estimate as to what the annual savings on heating and cooling costs might be because of the improved insulation?
That's kind of hard to do, when you're looking at building modeling. I don't know if the consultant actually ran any numbers, on actually heat loss and things like that. That was not something that they were tasked to do. Certainly when we should we get to the level where we're doing the window replacement, we can actually look at building modeling and see what impact that's going to have on the heating and cooling. It's kind of like a package deal, You could replace the insulation on the roof and get some savings, but if you're losing air in your windows, you're kind of negating that to some degree. But what we're looking at is a minimum R30 insulation on the roof, which is by code.
I think that our Department of Sustainability knows about stuff like this. Could you get with them and see if they could at least give you a ballpark estimate as to what would be reasonable to expect and let us know?
Yes.
Okay, great, thank you.
Okay. Mr. Strawn?
I think that at least the questioning from my colleagues probably more would lend itself to grants from an environmental standpoint. If there are grants available to public buildings, if you do take an energy efficiency, what's the R value of the roof right now?
I couldn't tell you. I'm not sure what the existing condition is.
40-year roof, it's probably at best an R15, I would think, at best, yeah, from 40 years ago. So you're
Yeah.
more than at least doubling that. So there would be, I think, a place to probe as to whether or not energy efficiency grants might be available at the federal level or someplace like that when a public building would to go in to do that. It seems to me that's where you can be actually finding money potentially off of that. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Strawn. I agree with my colleague here. That's one of the things I was thinking about.
Sorry, I didn't mean to take
No, no. Hey, any way we can get this, out there. And also, because of the historical value, it would seem to me that there'd be potentially some grant money through some organizations or something. Anything that can contribute to these extensive costs that we're going to be incurring in this building in the future. And as Ms. Baker pointed out, we have budget things coming up and a lot of important areas in health and human services and other things that we have to deal with. And when you're putting a lot of money into an old building, I understand we have to do it. It's a historical building and it's a beautiful building and a treasure. But again, you have to have that balancing act as to where these funds and the timing, especially with the timing and such, for the
course we do.
2.5 million. But again, when the estimates come in at 4 million, and you say, oh, this is actually a good deal at 2.5.
Right.
You understand where we're coming from. But
Absolutely, I do.
But a roof is a roof, and we have to have a roof on the building and prevent other issues from occurring, from that. So I understand that. With that said, what type of time frame are we talking about as far as moving this project along?
The anticipated timeframe was, I know you have that.
We plan on, after the contract is executed, with that intention, we plan to start in September.
Okay.
And then we've got a couple good working months before Cleveland weather intrudes on us. And so we hope to get the west side done and the center section of the roof. And then we've built in a 120-day period.
Right.
Based on conditions, and we would pick up the third phase early spring and complete right around June. Okay. So you're requesting this under suspension of the rules so you can move this project along in a September date here?
Yes, exactly. We're respectfully requesting approval under the second reading suspension.
Okay.
It's all exterior work, and
Right.
we would like to commence with that while we have favorable seasonal conditions. And as Susan had mentioned, there is phasing and sequencing built into the contract that the successful bidder is obligated to follow.
Okay, I appreciate that. Thank you, ladies. With that, if there's no further questions, could I have a motion for second reading suspension? A second? Second. Okay, I have a motion and second for second reading suspension. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Madam Clerk, thank you, ladies. Madam
Thank
Clerk,
you.
is there any other public comment this morning here?
No, Mr. Chair.
Okay, seeing none. And could I have a motion to adjourn? So moved. I have a motion and a second to adjourn. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. And Public Works will adjourn at 10:35 a.m. Thank you.